Back with another episode of Cheers to Baseball, presented by our friends at Old Dominic. That guy over there is Chris Domino. I'm Kevin McAlpin. Hope you're having a great start to the new month. That's right, the calendar has turned to April. And Chris, here we are. We are at least a full weekend, some teams a little bit deeper into the start of their regular season. A lot of really interesting storylines coming out. Let's start locally here in Atlanta. Braves do take 2 out of 3 from Philadelphia. Saw some really good, timely offense. Really been a hallmark of this team the last couple of years.
7th, 8th, 9th inning, a bunch of runs too. So Philadelphia bullpen, it's a good bullpen. We know, and we've talked about it, historically bad a few years ago. One of the reasons they fired a manager, one of the reasons Dave Dombrowski was brought in, because they realized, much like in football, offense, defense, and special teams, you better have that part of it shored up or you're not going to go anywhere. We know what happens. They go to the World Series, beat the Braves in a playoffs again last year. They got a bunch of big horses coming out of the bullpen, but Braves bats a little bit further ahead in the month of March than the Philadelphia bullpen was.
I raise a glass to Ozzie Albies, not top 10 second baseman in baseball. Ozzie Albies, who has a couple of 2-run homers in the first 3 games of the year. Chris, instant offense is what you get with Acuna, with Albies, Riley, Olsen. Heck, you could really go 1 through 9 with this Braves bunch. But for a guy who I think is still vastly underrated on both sides of the ball, good to see Ozzie come out of the gates hot.
Yeah, these are the same people, I believe, who actually had the Phillies bullpen as the #1 bullpen in all of the land. Yeah. And the Braves took advantage of that, certainly in the first 2 games. I thought the other thing that was interesting is the platoon of what's going to go on in left field with Kelenic and Duvall. Boy, did it work out perfectly for a couple of days in a row. Plus, you then get the who's on the mound, who gets the start, where it does feel like a platoon where both guys are going to get at-bats. But it was nice to see Kelenic get out of the gate the way that he did. It was nice to see Duvall welcome back the way that he was. And it really could be interesting because we had said it. You needed something coming off your bench that gave you a little bit of pop. But the idea that you have one spot, and it's left field, where you could mix and match, dependent upon not only who starts, but who's coming out of the bullpen at some point during a game, it played out perfectly for the first 2 days.
Sorry, I'm just taking a sip of my Tennessee whiskey here. This is really, really good stuff. We'll tell you more about Old Dominic coming up in just a couple of moments.
I'm almost thinking maybe I'll take a little pour in honor of what's going on in Chicago.
Yeah.
Where it's like 40 whatever degrees.
Let me get you some.
Yeah, thank you.
Yeah,
I almost think that, Amanda, would you like a little, no, you have to work. No, it's not for you. But I will take a little bit. Thank you.
There you go. Absolutely. Cheers, pal.
Yeah, it's chilly. It's chilly in Chicago. We're going to talk about, obviously, why baseball decides you're going to play baseball games in Chicago in the first week in April. But hopefully, with a day off Thursday, for a group of people that have not been in their homes since the middle of February, you don't want to spend one more day out on the road that you don't have to.
No, so we will hope that everybody stays warm and dry in Chicago. And cheers to the start of a baseball season. It's been a great start for the Braves, and we'll hope that that continues into the Windy City, and just hope that they can play these games. But look, I think that going back to your point about left field and the platoon with Jared Kelenic, isn't it amazing how quickly those troublesome spring training stats, they just kind of go over there really quickly when you get off to a start like he has?
Spring for a reason.
Yeah.
Everybody starts with zeros across the board. Yamamoto, the guy who threw for the Dodgers, he was terrible, historically bad in spring. And everybody said, well, what just happened? You spent $300 million on a guy who can't pitch. Then he went out and he showed that he can pitch at a major league level in a game where the score did count.
Anybody who says, by the way, that we don't have the best jobs in the world, we're drinking brown liquor. It's 2 o'clock in the afternoon on a Monday, and we're about to watch day baseball from Chicago.
All of that is correct. All of that is absolutely correct.
And I got my kids here. We got pizza on the way. Like, it just keeps getting better. You know, this Monday afternoon just keeps getting better and better. But it is a good start for the Braves. Dodgers out of the gates hot, as you expected. Some teams not off to great starts, like the Mets, like the Marlins, couple of teams in this division. Even Philadelphia's bullpen, which, as you mentioned, ranked as the #1 going in by some folks out there. 15 runs in 3 games.
Yeah. And again, 7, 8, 9. If you're going to look at the close and late or how you blow games open. Look, we'd said it. The Braves have more of a margin of error than anybody else in baseball offensively, from top to bottom. There's nobody. Look, I don't believe in a lot of what I read. I believe in less of what I hear. But I don't think there's anybody who in their right mind wouldn't say that 1 through 9, the Braves aren't the best offensive team in baseball.
Yeah.
I don't even want to call it a carryover from last year because I don't want to give them that kind of benefit. But there's no reason for anybody, unless they want to be a contrarian, to say that the Braves don't have the best 1 through 9. The reason we bring that up is in the 7th, 8th, 9th, when you're thinking about your matchups coming out of the bullpen, Braves make it much more difficult.
Yeah.
There aren't holes. You know, we're talking about they're going to play the White Sox, we think, over the next 3 or 4 days. Luis Robert is the guy. Like, he's literally the guy that you can't let beat you. Who do you say that about on a given day against the Atlanta Braves? Oh, it's easy to say Ronald Acuna is the reigning MVP. Okay, but what about the guy hitting after him, who's already got 2 home runs? The guy who hit 54 home runs. It's just different. The Atlanta Braves offense is built differently, which means the game that you want to play, even coming out of your bullpen, if a game is close and late, doesn't really usually work to your favor.
I love how Michael Harris was asked about it the other day, and he was asked about that 9th spot in the order. He goes, well, typically you have your best hitter in the 9th spot of the order, wink, wink, because he was so good there at the bottom of the lineup. But knowing you have the protection of Ronald and Ozzie and Riley and Olsen, it's got to be, like, I would love to hit 9th for this team. Wouldn't you?
Yeah, listen, I'd love to hit anywhere for anybody.
I'd hit 10th for them.
I'd play in Kansas City and I'd play in Chicago if I had to play in the major leagues. The Braves' 3 outfielders had 3 hit days the other day.
Yeah.
How often do you think that will happen in Major League Baseball? Where you're going to go left, center, and right, where those guys will have a minimum of 3 hits?
I'm trying to think of teams that have that kind of potency. Probably
it could happen on a given day.
Yeah.
But the point is the fact that it already happened. The Atlanta Braves had a day where all 3 of their outfield spots had 3 hits apiece.
Yeah.
I just don't know if that's going to happen very often around baseball.
Michael Harris is off to a great start. Jerry Kelenic, of course, Ronald. And his at-bats, boy, he's found himself down in the count. He's worked him back and worked him into his favor. The plate discipline we've seen from Ronald, too, I think is really impressive last couple of years. You have a power hitter like him. The swing and miss numbers are usually a lot higher. He's cut those things dramatically. It seems like every year they keep getting lower and lower.
It's a mantra around here. We're not going to give you outs, which means we're going to take our strikeout numbers down. And the Braves have. They struck out 15 guys on opening day.
Yeah.
You know, it was Spencer Strider plus the bullpen, but it was 15 guys. That's 5 innings worth of strikeouts, 5 innings where the ball's not in play. That's a pretty good recipe if you're going to have success. And again, close and late is what I'll look at more than maybe if you pound people occasionally. Chicago White Sox, we're taping this on Monday afternoon. They're 0-3. We talk about the teams that are surprisingly undefeated. There's 4 undefeated. There's 4 who are winless. The White Sox, they've only given up 11 runs on the mound, but they've only scored 8 runs.
Yeah, coming into play today, I think it was 1 for 14 with runners in scoring position. It has not been good on the south side of Chicago. So hopefully the Braves can capitalize, get a series win, get your butts home, and get ready for the home opener. And speaking of cheers to Braves fans. Excited to see this building packed coming up on Friday night. The Arizona Diamondbacks. Oh, by the way, the National League champion Arizona Diamondbacks will be in town. What kind of odds could you have gotten on that saying this time last year?
Kind of like NC State being in the Final Four in basketball. You would have had the same type of odds. You and I were talking about this as well. We mentioned Ozzie Albies, not a top 10 second baseman. He could have been and should have been the Silver Slugger Award winner at second base for the entirety of baseball. He lost it to Luis Ariz, who you had said 10 home runs, 69 RBIs. He had 355. It wasn't even close in terms of run production.
Yeah.
Ozzie didn't even win the Silver Slugger in his own division. What I'll say about Arizona is they will be, this year included, a year after they went to the World Series, the 4th most talked about interesting team in their own division.
Yeah.
Because the Giants won 107 a couple of years ago. What did they do? They got Blake Snell. They got Matt Chapman. Oh, wait, maybe the Giants are going to get back in it. The Dodgers get Ohtani and everything else they've done with 3 MVPs at the top of the lineup. And the San Diego Padres, who went all in, well, Juan Soto was gone. What are they going to do now with no Blake Snell, no Juan Soto? Will this be the year where the expectations are down a little bit, but they'll play better baseball? That means Arizona is the 4th most interesting team in the division as defending National League champs.
Not a good spot to be when the only team behind you is the Colorado Rockies as far as interest is concerned.
No doubt about it.
And they are miles and miles behind them in interest.
I think the Rockies are the White Sox of the National League, where you look and you go, what do you want me to say?
Yeah.
Like, what do you want me to talk about? You don't talk about the altitude anymore. You don't really talk about the high-scoring games. Colorado doesn't have that type of offense. And the White Sox, for playing in a big city, I don't think anybody knows a lot about them, and I don't think anybody cares that they don't know a lot about them.
They don't have the venue like Wrigley Field. They don't have the fan base like the Cubs. Give the Cubs credit. Even when they were atrocious year in and year out and had no opportunity for October baseball, Wrigley Field was always the spot to be. You wonder, could that reinvigorate a team like the White Sox? Could that get them going? Or like
you got $2 billion. We'll go build another place. That's what they want to do. I would have, if I was them, I would have pitched to go to Vegas.
Yeah.
I said it 5 years ago. I'm not Johnny come lately on this. I would not have let Oakland. I would have said, if I'm the White Sox, we want Vegas. And if you're telling me, well, there's supposed to be 2 teams in Chicago, I'll tell you, maybe there's not. But if somebody wants to pay an expansion fee to go back into Chicago with a plan to have a new ballpark and built something like the Battery. They're irrelevant. The Chicago White Sox are truly irrelevant. I would have said, as Vegas, when we saw what was going on with football, when we saw what was going on in the way they want to spend money out there, I would have lined up to say, we deserve it, wink, wink, more than the Oakland A's.
Well, look, we'll see if the Braves can capitalize before they come back home. Hopefully, they can get all 3 games in Chicago. If not, that means they'll probably lose a day off or 2 down the road as the schedule goes along.
Keep an eye on this. The Braves' advantage for the ability to hit home runs might be negated by temperatures and everything else. If you want to have an equalizer, maybe weather becomes the equalizer with the White Sox. They're not going to hit home runs anyway. Yeah. They're really not. The Braves might be the ones that pay the price a little bit this early in the season, not coming out of the gate and hitting home runs for 3 games in Chicago.
I will say I'm a little more comforted knowing the other day in Philly, the Braves offense scores 9 times, 13 hits, and they did it without the benefit of a home run because that wind was howling in Philly. So, look, for a team that hit 307 a year ago, they're not feast or famine. They're not living and dying on that home run ball. So they've got the contact hitters. This team was an extra base hit machine in Philadelphia. It's a hitter-friendly yard. Now, like you said, cold temperatures could negate a little bit of that, a little more even playing field if this series was played in July.
Keep an eye on the stops and starts if there are delays. I don't think anybody on the mound before a delay will be back on the mound if the temperatures are what they are. If it's anything, to me, 15 minutes or more, 20 minutes or more, you're not going back out. We'll also see if getting warmed up, if there's not a struggle early, if you don't pull a guy a little bit earlier than you normally would, because at that point, I'm not burning a guy trying to get him warmed up and into a groove because I'm just not sure it's possible in this type of temperature.
I'm telling you, I'm getting good and warmed up sipping on this Tennessee whiskey from our friends at Old Dominic. This is pretty good stuff.
Oh, yeah,
You're enjoying it.
Yeah. I got a bottle at home.
Yeah, you do. I got a couple, too.
I might open up the windows at the house tonight and just pretend it's cold out.
There you go. Whatever you have, maybe turn on the air conditioning and put on a hoodie. We do that in my house a lot of times during the summer. I freeze my poor wife out of the house, cranking that AC as low as I can get it. But we're feeling good here. We're going to get a chance to watch some day baseball, Braves, and White Sox from the South Side, guaranteed rate field. Fingers crossed, Mother Nature, are you listening? We don't need rain. We don't need this 50-mile-an-hour wind. We don't need these snow showers you're calling for.
Thursday. Yeah. We need a travel day Wednesday night is what we need.
Get these guys back home, sleep in their own beds. Cheers to the end of the first road trip. And again, a great start. For Chris, I'm Kevin. Cheers to you as well. And big thanks to Old Dominic for bringing us another episode of Cheers to Baseball. Let's do it again next week.
We will. Thank you very much, Amanda. Behind the scenes, taking care of all the buttons that need to be pushed. Looking forward to talking to you again next week, Braves fans.